Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Gukarastvandakaro Vai Rukarastvanivartakaha Andakara Nirodhitvat Gururithya Vidhiyate Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So today is the last segment, the last class of this 10-part talks on the discourses given by Swami Akhandanandaji to a general audience in Calcutta in the year 1982. I was just looking at the dates for some reason today, and I saw that this was the same year that I was studying at the Piercy Ashram with Swami Dayanandji in 1982. Incidentally, Swami Akhandananda was born in 1911 and obtained Mahasamadhi in 1987. And it so happens that, I think I might have told you this, that in the, that one time I had a chance to talk to Swami Pratyakbodhanandaji, who, as you know, has taken Mahasamadhi a couple of years back at the Sailorsburg anniversary. So when I first met him, this was in I would guess about late 90s, 97, 98. So then I got to talk to him, and it turns out that he and his sister, whose name I don't know, were both born in a very, very wealthy family in Gujarat, I think. It could be in Bombay, but I'm not sure. And both of them, the whole family, had a chance to listen to and meet Swami Akhandanandaji. And they were so taken in by his teachings that both the brother and sister took sannyasa and left their families. Can you believe that? And stayed with Swami Akhandananda for, in Vrindavan for a long time, followed him. So in the year 1997-98, when I met Swami Pratyakbodhanandaji, I remember that first meeting was so prophetic, as it turns out to be now. He had heard a little bit about my teaching, but we didn't know each other very well. So we spent some time talking. And he said that, have you ever seen the works of Swami Akhandananda? And I said, not really, I don't even know him. So he says, well, I tell you what, I brought a huge stack of books by him, and he perhaps got several of them, I'm not sure. And I was going to give it to some students, but knowing that you are a Hindi-speaking teacher of Vedanta, may I give this to you? So I said, Swamiji, that's a big gift. I'm not sure that I can accept such. He says, no, just take this and study it. And It was such a big stack that I didn't get really to go through it systematically. I may have leafed through some pages of it and didn't really study it very much. It was in my bookshelf for all these years, 25 years. And then later on, Swami Viditatmananda told me about Swami Maheshananda's teaching, and I really got to devote my attention to his Swami Maheshananda's books. Lo and behold, about 2 or 3 years back, I decided to open up the books from Swami Akhandananda. And it took me a little while, but the more I saw his writings, I was just, this is like a second coming. The first coming was Swami Chinmayananda and Swami Dayanand, and this was kind of like an amazing new way of talking about the insights about Vedanta. And I must have devoured, especially in the last COVID that I had last in 2022, I must have really read, 15 of his books. And then I chanced upon the 4-volume set of Mandukya and Karika. And I can just tell you this, there has been no book more influential in shaping my thinking than this. And as you know by now that I have read this a couple of times, and then I decided to order lots of books from India for those of you, and I think you have maybe about 15 copies or something like this. And I do plan to now start a course. So I will talk about this very shortly. And what I would say is that the Mandukya Karika, as explained by Swami Akhandananda ji, is not just a text. It is the comprehensive review of the entire Vedanta Shastra. He brings in talks from all the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita and so on and so forth in such a manner that really nothing needs to be left out of that. So I intend to, later on this month, on the Saturday morning, start what I would say is a course, an advanced course on Vedanta using Swami Akhandananda ji's, and of course Swami Dayanand ji just has published 4 volumes of it, and I will go through that as well, although I have been taught by him from the very beginning. Anyway, I just want to give you a background about Swami Akhandananda. What a great thinker, what a Mahatma he is, and how much he has really influenced my thinking. I'm so indebted to Swami Pratyek Bodhananda ji. And Ishvara really does it. He provides the right links, as you know very well. Anyway, let's go back to our class. So, as part of my reading, I came across this short book called Vyavahara Shuddhi. So Vyavahara Shuddhi, of course, means leading a life in such a way that your mind becomes more attuned to the finer points of Vedanta. Ishvara Bhakti. What Vyavahara Shuddhi means. Shuddhi means purity. Purity in your day-to-day life. What does it mean? So he gave these talks in two 1-week discourses 1 year apart in Calcutta. And so when I was reading this, the second part, which was attaining non-attachment, asangata, appealed to me. I thought this is what I would focus on. So now with today's class, I would have taken 10 classes. to go over as much as possible on the 7 discourses that Swami Akhandananda gave on asangata. So let's just use today's class as a kind of a review and a summary and perhaps a call for action. So interestingly enough, when I went through it, what I found was that he had based his discourses almost exclusively, not entirely, but pretty much on Bhagavad Gita. And I think that there is a reason for it because, as you know very well, as students of Vedanta, that Bhagavad Gita is Vedanta taught to an active person, represented by Arjuna, one who is very much involved in the vyavahara, in the transactions of life, not a sannyasi. So that's what Bhagavad Gita is aimed to. So Swami Akhandananda's books also are heavily favored towards an active person like you and I, that have friends, families, jobs, we are actively engaged in life. So what kind of sadhana we can use to purify our thinking so that we can be a little bit more prepared to understand the subtleties of Vedanta. This is what he's doing. So in these classes also, as I've been saying that, and now I will repeat some of it, he quotes Bhagavad Gita extensively. Now what I found was that many of the authors do this. Bhagavad Gita, of course, is kind of like an ocean. It has so many treasures, so many different ways of looking at life. Both sadhya and sadhana, what is to be known, how to know it, problems in life, all of that, it is a very comprehensive guidebook. So you can say that the asangata, the non-attachment, is one of the prakaranas, one of the vishishta prakaranas, one of the special topic within Bhagavad Gita. And how he picks out the various related shlokas from the Bhagavad Gita to fulfill his vision of how to achieve asangata is marvelous, just marvelous. And so if you have a chance to sometimes go over your notes in the 10 classes, or perhaps read the book in case you are Hindi speaking and you already have a book or can get it, or to just review the classes that have already gone through. It may be a very good, you don't have to do that right now, but sometime in the future, really focus in on this one aspect and do some vichara on asangata. All right, so with that, let's go on. So, as you just a quick revision of this whole thing, as I mentioned, what we saw was that the two conclusions that we all carry in our life, one is that I am a human being. I am a jiva. And what that means is that I had a specific beginning. I have specific relationships, mother, father, friends, children, and brother, sister. I have a specific way of life based on my station in life and a specific lifespan beyond which I know I'm not going to be there. So this is what is called the conclusion of a jiva or jivatvam. So this is one. And the related to that, and we can really say related to it, is called samavayi karanam. Samavayi karanam means non-separable relationship. If one is there, the other must be there. The other one is there, the first one is there. So the related to that is the conclusion that I am the main doer of my life. Yes, I recognize that there are people who are around me, who support me, who help me. Sometimes they don't help me, whatever. But I am responsible for my life, about the progress of my life. And I have to do something about it. And I have to suffer the consequences of wrong actions or non-actions, whatever it is. I'm very aware of the fact that I am responsible for action and responsible for obtaining the results of the action. So this is what is called kartritvam and bhoktritvam. That I'm a karta. So my karta means that I'm a doer. I have to really improve my life or become more happy or become more successful, whatever it is. And then I also am the recipient of the finding that I am disappointed or I am elated, I'm happy, I am worried. All of those kinds of emotions are included in the bhoktritvam, right? So, so these are the two things. One is jivatvam, the sense of limitation. And the other one is kartritvam, which means a sense of, I won't say completely alone, but primarily alone as the doer responsible for my life. These are the two things. Okay? So the Shastra says, please recognize this fact that these two are inseparable factors, jivatvam and kartritvam. And please also see that this is a Brahma. That you are a jiva is a Brahma. It is no truth to it. It just looks like it. We understand that it looks like it, but it is, if you really inquire into it, the whole thing falls apart. You are not a limited person. You are in fact a free person. This is what the Shastra says, as you know. But what the Shastra says is that for you to understand that you are something more than a jiva, you are in fact the very creator of your life and sustainer of your life. You are the Ishvara of your life and therefore free from it, all the limitations. In order for you to understand it, you cannot understand it by my just telling you that over and over again. So this is exactly what happened in the case of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna, even though he was a great friend of Arjuna and a benefactor of Arjuna, failed to convince him. In all these chapters, this is what happens. Arjuna would come back and say, I know you're telling me the truth, but I don't quite get it. So this was the issue. And Krishna also knew it. Shastra knows that we are not going to completely sit down and say, okay, done. Thank you very much. It's not going to happen. At least you should have the Shraddha to listen to me. And you have the Shraddha to say, yeah, that sounds interesting. Because there's no agenda involved. This is for your own good. As you know, Shruti is called a mother. The mother is the person in life who has the least amount of agenda. She may have a little bit of agenda, and that agenda is that when I grow very old, I hope somebody can take care of me. But that's about it. Otherwise, she's happy the way you are. So the Shruti also has no agenda. They want you to be completely free. And you have a certain Shraddha. Yes, they're talking the truth to me. But how do I give up my jivatva? It's very natural to me. All my daily transactions are limited. What am I going to do? So the Shastra says, I'll tell you what. You're right. By repeatedly listening to me, you're not going to get it. I know that. So here's what you should do. You should attack the other factor, which is kartritvam. And I will give you a methodology for attacking kartritvam and diminishing that, slowly diminishing that. That's going to happen one fine morning and say, things are happening, I don't have to do anything in my life. No. But upon a careful review of the factors that you are not taking into account, you're overlooking, my job is to convince you that you are not alone. In fact, if I may say so, you have a pretty minor role in your own life. What? I don't see that. How can I have a minor role in conducting my own life? Shastra says, yep, you do. And this has to be studied. You have to study it, you have to convince yourself, you have to look at the data, you have to analyze the data, and that can be done. But simply by saying you are free, you are free, you are free, it's not going to happen. Unless you have already done all this vichara in the previous life. And so, yeah, it's very possible that somebody can simply, the wood of your life is so dry that just lighting a little bit becomes a conflagration. All the avidya becomes gone. It doesn't happen all that much. We are relatively wet. And so just by repeating you are free to you, it doesn't help. What does help, however, is to inquire into kartritvam. And furthermore, the Shastra says this is a very smart way to give up your jivatvam. Because if you start to give up kartritvam, you become less of a jiva. Less of a jiva means that this sense of worry and concern about my life and what's happening to me and where am I going, I'm wasting my time, time is passing, etc., etc. This will become less and less and less and less. The more you give up kartritvam, the less jivatvam you will have. And you will see the progress yourself. You don't have to have an exam or somebody evaluates you or anything. It's all self-evaluation. You are the best judge. I'm very pleased. Sometimes I get letters from the students that, we were traveling or we had met some issues and so on. And they're saying that I'm really happy that I was able to go through some of the issues and problems without the same kind of mental reactions that I expected me to have. It is very true. This is exactly what happens. You will see that you study Vedanta, you yourself will say, wow, I'm better than before. And so you have to keep going based on that positive feedback that your own mind tells you. Anyway, so going back to the methodology of these discourses, the Shastra says the attack kartritva. That's a possibility. So then the question becomes, how? Fine, I understand that I have to attack kartritva, but now the question is, what do I do? How do I do it? So this is what happens when you study the Bhagavad Gita, just a Bhagavad Gita means a song. Bhagavat means the song of Ishvara, celestial song, not an ordinary song. Song in the sense of saying advice, talks. And so what happens is that there's so much in there that you just go through it and you overlook some specific things that you should be really pausing on. And so one of them is the diminishing of kartritvam. And so it's all there in the Bhagavad Gita. Swami Akhandananda did not just do it on his own. He just picked, and because his wisdom consists of recognizing the truth unfolded in the Bhagavad Gita. So then he starts all of the things. So I'll read some verses from these talks, more as a revision rather than a new thing. So as you know, he said in chapter number 3, verse number 27, Prakritehe kriyamanani gunaihi karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudhatma kartahamiti manyate. And so each one of these verses has lots of foundations that you have to study. You have to study well, and I don't have the time to go. I think we did a little bit of that as we explained these verses, not today because this is a summary class, but you have to know exactly what Prakriti is. You have to look at gunas. What is gunas? And we'll go over that a little bit more detail in the summary later on, as Swami Akhandananda has given. Ahankar you know very well. Ahankara means I am the doer, I am responsible. And this is, as we saw, not a special ahankara, not like somebody who is imanitvam, dambhitvam, who's talking exaggeration. Oh, I've done this, I've done that. No, just the ordinary ahankara. All of us have the same ahankara. Natural. I am the doer. I am responsible. I am the worried one. Nobody else takes care of me. What am I supposed to do? This ahankara. So he says, just a very short summary of this. Prakritehi kriyamanani gunaihi karmani sarvashaha ahankaram vimudhatma kartaram iti manyate. He says the Prakriti is doing a lot through the gunas. There's a lot happening. You're just overlooking it, and instead you're only focused on a very small portion of that and said, me. Yeah, you do have a role to play, but not as crucial as you think it is. This is one of the verses. Then the next verse on chapter 3, verse number 28, Tattva vittu mahabaho gunakarma vibhagayoho guna guneshu vartante iti matvana sajjate. So this we will take it up again towards the summary of this class in a few minutes when we do that. So he basically says, the truth of the matter is, Tattvavit, the one who knows the truth, Mahabhavo, understands the interplay between karma and guna, how they are all mixed up and how they are carrying your experiences. Gunaha guneshu vartante. One guna is carrying different other gunas. So this whole guna I'll explain that a little bit more detail later on. He says, knowing this, that the gunas are all involved in doing things, I don't have anything to do with it. Let me relax. Tattvavittu mahabaho gunakarma vibhagayoho guna guneshu vartante iti matvana sajjate. You don't get involved. You don't get You don't get bound by it. Sangaha, the word sangaha and sajjate all come from the same dhatu, and so means that you don't get pulled by it. Then, of course, the very important verse which we studied at some depth, including going over to Panchadashi, chapter 6, and picking up all of the details of that. Absolutely important one. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hriddeshe junatisthati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra arudhani mayaya. 1861. So the and also let me do the next one, 1862. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam. So it's very interesting, these two sets of verses. Although there are lots of other ones, he's only pick out a few of them, denote the two main things that we need to do in order to become more free of issues in my life. Asangata. In order to attain non-attachment, Mahatmas say there are two things you have to channel your energies on. The first one, again, I will go through a little bit later on, so I'm just giving you the prelude to it. The first one is given by the first two verses, which is Viveka. And the last two point out the second thing that you have to do, which is to take refuge in Ishvara. First one is a Viveka, which means understanding how things work. And the second thing is, having understood how things work, have no hesitation in seeking the Sharanagati of Ishvara, which is a very natural one. And you cannot complete the Viveka until you do Sharanagati. And you will not do Sharanagati until the Viveka is complete. So, this is what would be called Jnanam in the first one and Bhakti in the second part. So, this is the thing. This is something so beautiful and unique in Advaita Vedanta. The traditional Sampradayic view of Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Tattve. So this is what is beautiful and unique, which means without Sharanagati, your Viveka, the so-called dry Viveka, I know exactly what's going on. I know exactly how worlds are created. What is Atma, Vinit, and so on and so forth. And so this folding of hands and saying, I know, I've done it, I'm free, is a false one, I'm sorry to say. Really speaking, when a person becomes free, there is no sense of accomplishment. Our acharyas used to say that. Swami Dayananda used to say that. because he would often ask him, Swamiji, how does it feel? And, he would say, I feel that I have bothered a lot of people by my conduct, not knowing what was going on. I feel sorry. Why did I do that? It's not, it's I can relate it to this example of saying that if you take the rope to be a snake, supposing you saw really a snake, and then you said, oh my gosh, help, help, we need, there's a snake in this house, in this room, and then you close the door, and you go out, and everybody else, of course, snake is a very big thing inside the house, and so everybody gives up whatever they were doing, and they just come to you and say, well, where did you see it? It says, over there, over there. They say, okay, I tell you what, okay, you stand back, and there are two people, so there's 2 or 3 people, lot going on, all that. So finally somebody just flips the light, and they instantly see this guy may have made a mistake. So they, just to be sure, they say, where did you see this? Is this in this area? It says, yeah, right here. My God. Relax. It's not a snake. Not a snake. So when that happens and a person sees it, how would you think he feels? Would he feel accomplishment? I have finally figured out. Oh, other people helped me, this, that, or the other, but it was me. No. You would feel sheepish, and you will feel sorry that you created this unnecessary problems with people. So this is exactly what happens. That when you do viveka and you understand what is going on, you feel sheepish. I'm bothering people and I'm getting angry at things. Why? Everything is going on well. And I recognize Ishvara. You don't even say, why is this thing happening to me? You don't say anything. You say, whatever. Happen, let it happen. Sharanagati. Anyway, I already talked about what I thought I was going to do, so I may summarize it. But these 2 sets of verses, Tattvavittu Mahabaho, Kartaramiti Manyate, and then Ishvara Sarvabhutanam, etc. Tameva Sharanam Gaccha. Tameva Sharanam means Ishvara Eva Sharanam Gaccha. Go to take Sharana of Ishvara. Sarva Bhavena Bharata, in all possible ways. And he says, your Shantim Sthanam Prapsyasi Shashvatam. So we'll have something more to say on that. Okay. All right. In the first two verses where we were trying to do viveka, so here the key words are gunaha guneshu vartante iti matvana sajjate. Gunaha guneshu vartante. So here what is the meaning of guna? So guna here is simply a word, just means, it really means kind of like a special quality. But the world is all filled out with special qualities, isn't it? Because you hear a word, the ability to hear a word, something very special. because you need to generate sound, and you need the ability for your sense organs to be receptive to that sound. So if you look at how the entire Srishti is made, there's a lot of specialty kind of things going on. These are all what is called gunas. So here, Shabda, Sparsha, Rasa, Gandha and Rupa. So seeing, touching, hearing, smelling, etc., all 5 of them. This is the 5 gunas of Srishti. And then the corresponding sense organs that make them happen are also part of, they're also gunas. They have a different function. They connect you to all these things. This is what life is. Life all consists of words, smells, etc., etc. And life consists of the ability to smell, the ability to see, the ability to touch. So all these are the gunas of life. These are the specialty things of life. Then on top of that, you have the mind, which is the most important and unifying sense organ out of all of them. Because it makes sense. Yes, this is for real, this is a real flower, this is a fake flower. And without manaha, you're not going to be able to, if the manaha is absent, then you don't see anything. Your eyes are seeing it, but your mind is someplace else, you don't see it. So what really enables the seeing, validates the seeing, is the manaha. And the manaha instead is dependent on the buddhi. Because whether you really saw it or that you were perhaps inebriated and you saw something vaguely, this is known by the buddhi. Oh, my mind was kind of upset that day and I didn't really see things very well. So now the condition of the mind itself is interpreted by the buddhi, as you know. The buddhi is also a guna, the ability to distinguish what is a sane mind versus insane mind. Because you have an insane mind, they see reality completely differently. What can you do? Then, Swami Kanananda points out that the 3 states, a beautiful specialty, the 3 states where the waking state and the sleep state, this we are going to go through in some very interesting detail in the Karika when we start that. Anyway, all the 3 states are a very particular gunas. They are all gunas. So and so then the entire prakriti, the entire nature, the entire background to all this, the Prithvi, the water, the Surya, and so on and so forth, these are all gunas. And they are all interacting with each other, helping each other, and providing a certain lattice work for you to see and to feel and to experience what life. It all goes on. And as we saw the other day, that the advice given by the Mahatma was that this is Swami Akhandananda when he went to a Mahatma and he says, what do you think I should do? So he says, meditate on the banks of a river. And so he says, yeah, I know, but then why? He says, because get accustomed to the fact that you are separate from the flowing river. And also the fact that the flowing river appears to be real, but it is made up of a continuous flow of things that are, you can't even catch it. How one wave gets into another wave. In order to see the flow, sometimes, you see a log on one side, and you follow the log on the river, then you can see the flow. Otherwise, you cannot see the flow. It all looks like all mixed up. That's what life is. It's a flow. So the Mahatma told him that if you want to distinguish yourself of this, study that. And then when you open your eyes and you go working on aspects of your life and so on, do not forget that this whole life is nothing but a flowing river. Just observe it. And so we saw that. So what it says is that the entire prakriti of gunas is busy flowing. So this is one thing. Then, having done that part of it, you look at how you are also different from the flow. So here, Swami Akhandananda quotes another Bhagavad Gita verse from chapter 13, verse number 31. Excuse me a second. Pardon me. So in chapter 13, verse 31, it says, Anaditvat nirgunatvat paramatma ayam avyayaha sharirasthopi kaunteya na karoti na lipyate. So he says that for the following reason, Anaditvat. Anaditvat means janma rahitat. There is no janma in it. It's, as you know, it's always there. Nirgunatvat. So this is a very relevant word. There is no guna. You saw the gunas in the flowingness of the life, as we saw. Everything is made out of gunas, 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 gunas. One thing, even though it is in your body, sharirasthopi, sharirasthaha, sharire tishtati iti sharirasthaha, means even though it is available right here in the sharira. It's not as though it's somewhere else. No, it is right here. Hey kaunteya, na karoti na lipyate. So he says that because it is anadi, it is nirguna, paramatma, ayam avyayaha, means that does not change or decay. Because of that, there is one thing which is going on in the life, that not only is there a lot going on with the flow of life, but there is an observer of the flow which is not affected by it. Like a person sitting on the bank of a river. Do that viveka. Because right now you feel your mind is, My mind is moving, therefore I am also moving. It was interesting in the Mandukya Karika, as we will see again. I'll repeat it when we come there. Swami Khandananda says that there was a Tibetan Lama. So this is written up in the Tibetan books. Tibet also, I mean, the Buddhists and so on, they also have a pretty informed view of what life is and so on. They're well read and very. So there was one person who goes to a Tibetan Lama and he says, "Sir, I have a question. You know this flag which is moving? I see the flag. There's windy and it says the flag is moving. My question to you, sir, is it the wind moving or the flag moving? Which of these two is true?" So the Lama told him, "My dear, it is neither the wind moving nor the flag moving, it is your mind moving." So this is exactly what happens. We will see this in much more clarity, more detail, comprehensiveness when we do the Karika. But this is exactly what happens. I do not, so this is the Viveka part. So I don't do the Viveka that there is something that is not moving at all. So here Swami Akhandananda gives a very beautiful way of looking at it. He says, look at your eyes. The eyes have seen some very good things, very beautiful things, very pleasant things. And it has also seen the opposite of that, something which is troubling. It's not its ugly situation. The eye sees it. Does the eye become beautiful by seeing a beautiful thing? Does the eye become ugly by looking at an ugly thing? It can't. It has to be nirguna. This says, guna guneshu vartante iti matva na sajjate. So this is true even of our sense organs. And then, of course, the very interesting aspect of manaha. So you can say, okay, I understand that I saw something not very pleasant, but then the next minute I forget about it. But what about my mind? My mind also keeps on remembering bad things. And they say no. That might take a little bit more to erase itself because of the nature of the mind. But it goes. It goes. There was an incident in Swami Maheshanandji. I was talking about it, that one of his students, he's actually a family man with a lot of money and family and so on. So his wife died, and they were both relatively young. And he was just so distraught. He came to Swamiji and said, Swamiji, my life is over. My wife and my best friend, she died, left me alone. I don't want to live anymore. I am really thinking I'm just going to commit suicide. So Swamiji said, you know, it's okay, it'll be all right. Just for a few days. You've got children, you've got responsibility. You know, the normal stuff. Swamiji says, 3 or 4 months later, I think he says some number, I don't remember, 3 or 4 months, I was driving by in a car, and this guy was having golgappas and chaat on the street along with two of his friends, and they were slapping and happy and just, I said, I am so happy. Hey Ishvara, you are so great. At one moment the person was ready to commit suicide. In a few months he is now, his wife is farthest from his mind. So this is what happens in our life. Even the mind may retain a little bit of vasanas, but that also is really na sajjate. Guna guneshu vartante yat iti matva na sajjate. So Swamiji says that this is true of your eyes, your ears, rest of the sense organs, your mind, your buddhi. They cannot function without being not affected by the gunas. What to speak of the Atma? At least your mind was somewhat connected to the situation. But the Atma was never connected. And even when it appears to be connected, it is not. How can it retain anything from it? So he says that the thing you have to do now, what you have to do is to do the vichara of your non-connectivity. You think you are connected, but if you just think about it, how many friends you've had who have gone from your life? How many people who troubled you, they've gone? How many bosses, situations at work have come and gone? You are the same. So don't you see the asangata? Why are you clinging on to sangha as though I have to be clinging on to something? It's complete Brahma. The nature is, it's just flowing. Let it go. Why are you clinging? And you are clinging, we think, because you are clinging to some people who think they might help you in the future. Here Swami Akhandananda says, you have no assurance of that. Your friends will become less friendly, and some people who are less friendly will become your friends. This is the situation which is going to go on. And I think I told you this when I read Adi Shankara's autobiography. He was talking to his mother when he took sannyasa. His mother was very upset and so on. So he says, Mom, I'm very sorry to tell you, you are not the only mom in my life. I've had millions of moms in the past that they're gone. I had so many relationships, they're all gone. I don't have them anymore. This is nothing. At least you are still alive, I'm still alive. And so this is the advice. That you're not saying, how do I become a non-attached? Hey, you are already non-attached, you just don't recognize it. It is Brahma on your part. So this is the part about the Viveka. Now to end it all is the second part which we already talked about. And that is, you see, this is very interesting if you look at this. Very revealing. All these talks by the Swamis are so revealing. Like for instance, this is something we are going to go into a lot of detail. The nature of Atma is Satyam Jnanam, to see. To see is the nature of the Atma, isn't it? Can you ever give up your awareness? I'm aware. I know I'm aware. I know. You can't give it up because that's your nature. Okay? So this we will see. This is just an amazing thing. Our nature is that to see things. And what happens is that I cannot help myself but to see things. And to see things, I also evaluate it. So when you see the samsara in front of you, you cannot but see it. But seeing is not a problem. The problem is you misinterpret it. You think this is not me. I'm only here. This is not me. This is not me. This is the Brahma. There is nothing other than the I. But because you are seeing it and you're seeing it wrongly, it creates a problem for you. Anyway, that's not my main topic. I'll come to it when we go to Karika. But here, look at it. One other good, if you want to call this a kind of like a amazing quality that the Atma has, although we don't call it a quality, it's a very natural thing, is love, connection. It's very natural to us. We want to be attached. We really do want to be attached. And all this time on this talk about asangata, you're saying be non-attached, be non-attached. That's not natural to me because I do want to be attached. Just like I want to keep on seeing, but I just don't see the world as I should. But I cannot help but to see. Similarly, one of my qualities, if you want to call it a quality, is love. Love means that I don't want to see other things that I have nothing to do with it. Therefore, it is pointed out, good. Be attached to Paramatma, which is your own self. Not the Jiva's self, but Paramatma's self, Parameshwara. So go to the refuge of Parameshwara. Recognize the attachment. Do Sharanagati. And so it's not as though we are separating you from something, but you are recognizing the very natural love that you have for Brahman, for Paramatma, for Ishvara, for the Atma. That is what you should be very attached to Sharanagati. So I'll end this whole thing by an incident that Swami Mukhandananda pointed out. Like you remember that he went to a Mahatma who told him you should be sitting next to a river and meditating. So Swami Mukhandananda says, when I was a student, and he was an aspiring student. He was going from Mahatma to Mahatma and saying, I don't understand how to do this. So one of the things he could not do was he could not submit himself to Ishvara. He could not do Sharanagati. So he went to a Mahatma and says, Mahatma Ji, I request you to show me how to do Sharanagati to Parameshwara. So the Mahatma said, Okay, I'll show it to you. But come tomorrow. And when you come tomorrow, please tell me what entity does not have Sharanagati to Paramatma. Think about it. And if you can show me anything which does not already have Sharanagati to the Paramatma, then I will show you how to do it. So Swami Akhandananda says that I went away and I started to think. And he was not a novice. He'd already been taught all this quite a bit. So he kind of recollected all of the data and brought it to focus for this one thing. And he said, Prithvi is devoted to Ishvara. It doesn't go randomly on its own. It spins at a particular speed. The sun is not going on its own. It is doing Sharanagati to Ishvara because it travels in the manner that Ishvara wants it to. Water, air, akasha, and then these are all the Panchamahabhutas, but then the Bhautikas that are born from it, they all follow an order. They're all devoted. They're following the command of Ishvara. That's what Sharanagati is. Whatever you say, sir, we're ready to do it. Prakriti. How people are born. With what vasanas. With what karma and karma pala. All based on Sharanagati to Ishvara. So he says, I just focused on it. And so he says, I went back to the Mahatma just to kind of reconfirm. And he was a very bright student obviously. So his Mahatma, he said, sir, this is the way I feel, that the entire Shrishti is following it. Mahatma says, that's exactly right. My dear, you are also following Paramatma. You are already following Paramatma, you just don't know it, that's all. You refuse to say, no, this is just ahankara aham manyate. This is I am responsible. This is what life is all about. You see all these big people have made money and this, that or the other, they feel, I don't need any Ishvara. I've done it. So this is a very natural thing that we have to, growth means we have to recognize what's going on. And if you do, so so when you talk about asangata, you have to be asangaha from things that bother you because it's wrong. But have sangha, which is there to support you at any time. So this is what I was saying, that your natural love for attachment, let it be. So this is why they say that without bhakti, jnanam is very dry. It will never satisfy. So anyway, that is a kind of a summary of the the various discourses from Swamiji. And with that, I close the class today. And so we will be off next week. We'll have a break for 1 week. And the 2 weeks from today, I will start a new text, which I am pretty much leaning on. But I'll write to you about it. And then we'll start that. That also will be not a very big text. I want, for the time being, I just want to take, this particular book has 6 verses, but has a very good commentary by Swami Akhandanandaji. So I'll follow that, and I will announce it in the next few days. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So one thing I wanted to share with you is that, as I mentioned to you before, this class on Saturday mornings, which we're going to begin, I think, on the 30th of this month, with maybe an initial class on the 23rd, just as an introduction to it, is going to be on the Karika. And I feel that this is a major course of study of Vedanta, as I mentioned already. I wouldn't look upon this as just studying the 12 verses of Mandukya Upanishad. Because the Karika, by its very nature, I'll explain this when I start the class, so I won't go into a lot of detail, but the very nature of Karika is that it's an independent work that takes into account the genesis of the work from an Upanishad, but builds upon a complete set of verses which is complete and comprehensive by itself. So it is really like a course of Vedanta, very much like the course on Bhagavad Gita. So when you study Bhagavad Gita, you don't just study one thing, you study the whole thing. So this is going to be like that. And what I'm saying is that because of the amount of the coverage, 1 week a class may not be enough. So one idea that I have is that not initially, because we are going to start this short text 2 weeks from now, but eventually I may have both Saturday and a Tuesday night devoted to the Karika. because it would take too long for us to, I don't know if I'll even be alive. It'll take me years to finish the Karika. That's a thought that I'm entertaining. I may not do it. I'll ask you all for it. And you don't have to attend both the classes. You can do one. You can attend one of the classes live, and the other one you can watch it later. That's a possibility because the timing might not suit everybody. Anyway, those are some of the thoughts that I have, and I will let you know when we do that. Okay, very good. Thank you very much all for attending these 10 classes, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully in the future. Hari Om.